This is the subversion of Whiskey Peak. Welcome back to my One Piece blind review series. This week, as we just mentioned, we're going to be talking about the subversion of Whiskey Peak. We're going to go through the arc beat by beat and explain why I think this arc really subverts your expectations of what to expect from typically One Piece arcs that we see prior to this one. So, it's going to be a wild ride. Let's get into it. Let's review Whiskey Peak. You should also do a review of my Patreon page, as by becoming one, you'll get my blind reviews on Little Garden Part 1 and 2 and Drum Island Part 1 right now. Seriously. So, I am demanding that you go and not become a Patreon, not get access to my videos 3 weeks early, and sure as hell not have a fun time. See that? That's reverse psychology, Billy. The Straw Hats are now back at it, making their way to Whiskey Peak with Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, who begged them to take them to their village after trying to poach Laboon, the gigantic whale, and boy do I mean gigantic. While the Straw Hats have experienced much trial and tribulation navigating the waters of the Grand Line, this time they're experiencing a new trial. They're going in circles. Not only that, but the weather is changing rapidly from winter to spring. Even Nami's navigation skills are being felled by the Grand Line. But eventually, they do make it to Whiskey Peak on an island of cactuses? Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, however, see this as their opportunity to escape, going back on their word and swimming away to Whiskey Peak while the Straw Hats are none the wiser. Either way, I loved this opening bit. There is a clear focus on making the Grand Line seem chaotic with its odd characteristics. Seems every second we're on the Grand Line, a new challenge and issue arises for the Straw Hats. This is pretty good world building because you gotta think, how did other people navigate these hellish waters? So, arriving at Cactus Island, Nami informs them that each island can take various amounts of time to record in the log pose, depending on the size and magnetic field. Knowing this mechanic, they'll have to spend more time on Cactus Island, and they will as they arrive at Whiskey Peak. The people there are jazzed up to see the pirates arrive. Rather, they see them as heroes of the sea. And at this point, I'm expecting Luffy to present a mother with her dead son's hand. Wacky AOT reference! We're then introduced to Mama, the mayor of Whiskey Peak, Igarapoi, who introduces them to the town of Whiskey Peak. So they decide to throw them a massive welcoming party where Nami outdrinks everyone and Kirby lives out his best life. While this is happening, Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday are plotting when it's revealed, oh no, they've actually led the Straw Hats astray. They're actually leading them to Cactus Island, though we also learn a little about their boss, who is possibly named Baroque, which is an underrated genre of music, I'm not gonna lie. Back at the party, Zoro is passed out. Nami is going toe-to-toe with a nun, and Kirby is, well, as I said before, living his best life, and the night ends with them all sleeping. But not for Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, because when it's revealed that Igarapoi is actually Mr. 8, and we're also introduced to Miss Monday as well. So, their goal is to not take out Laboon, but Luffy, as he has a 30 million belly bounty on his head. I loved this because it shows that there is a consequence to just things happening in the world of One Piece. Luffy may have taken out Arlong, Buggy, and so on and so forth, but in turn, that's made him an even more valuable target to not just the Marines, but also the opportunistic people like we have here before us. As well, this is another small nod to world building. Mr. 8 tells them that they must capture them alive because if they kill them, they'll lose 30% of the bounty. But more importantly, the government likes to hold public executions. I believe this is the first time this is directly confirmed through words in One Piece, as we do know Gold Roger was executed publicly, but we didn't know this was because the government likes to hold public executions. Either way, I don't exactly trust the government in One Piece right now, that's for sure. Though the Straw Hats aren't dumb. Though now that I think about it, that just may be a perspective thing. Zoro confronts them all as he figures out that this island is a den of bounty hunters who trick newbie pirates by welcoming them and then eventually turning on them after they're all passed out from the party. Not only that, but Zoro knows their name, Baroque Works. Yes, I am going to make a joke about their name, but not right now. I have unlimited opportunities to do so. However, since Zoro knows pretty much everything about this organization, built on utmost secrecy, even down to not knowing each other's names, well, he knows too much. They gotta kill him. Interestingly though, they all put the bodies of the people they kill on Cactus Rock, which makes up the needles of a cactus, but up close they're clearly tombstones. Neat. This leads to a battle between Zoro and the members of Baroque Works, where Zoro is eventually cornered into a house, but he fights his way out and is fired at by a cannon launcher. Yeah, well, he survives that. Even a barrel was thrown at Zoro, which is promptly cut into pieces. Even the power of the Lord cannot get the best of Zoro as he blocks the holy gas. Even more savage, he leads them all up a ladder, which he then knocks down and uses Takanami. Though, Zoro's luck runs out. Or does it? As Miss Monday pins him and hits him in the face with brass knucks, only for Zoro to get back up and fight, licking the blood running down his forehead. Now, something that's really neat about this moment is that even though this is a manga, if you listen closely, you can hear the sounds of fangirls screaming, "Ooh, ooh, pick me! Zoro, pick me!" Joke never gets old. So this leads to a showdown between the two where Mr. 8, realizing his position, takes out a saxophone of all things and uses his move Igarapapa, which blows Zoro away, giving Miss Wednesday enough time to mount a duck named Karu, who at first literally tries to give Miss Wednesday a hand, by the way, though Karu isn't useful anyways, as instead of running, the duck simply sits. While that's happening, it gives Mr. 9 his opening to jump down and use a flurry of moves, Neketsu 9 and Konjo Bat. Though Zoro wants to clearly fight something competent, so Miss Wednesday answers Zoro's request by trying to hypnotize Zoro using Mamai Dance. Pause. Stop the video. What the hell is happening right now? I'm sitting here reading this, and I am legit confused at the absurdity at what my eyes are laying upon. And Mr. 9 is just straight up as bad at his job, and all I can think about is the Beatles song Revolution Number 9, where the guy repeatedly says, "Number 9, number 9," which, by the way, backwards is "Turn me on, dead man." So now I'm thinking about John Lennon trying to get a dead Paul McCartney to turn him on. And then Miss Wednesday does a hypnotizing dance? Which I'm not gonna lie, I don't mind, especially depending on the context, but it's just so stupid. How did Oda come up with this? Did he take a trip to a mountain and write this while on ayahuasca? Well, at least it gave us Miss Wednesday doing a dance, I guess, so I'll let it pass. The dance, however, does seem to work on Zoro just as much as it worked on me, and so Miss Wednesday uses Kujaki Slash, which is done when twirling a small blade on her pinky finger, which, by the way, I swear to God if this works. Though thankfully it doesn't, or rather, we don't know if it ever would have, because Karu, after a delayed response, takes off with Miss Wednesday in the complete wrong direction. At this point, even Zoro says he's embarrassed for having to fight these idiots. Despite that, Zoro is on the run as the battle wears on, which leads to Mr. 9 popping up out of nowhere with two silver metal baseball bats that have detachable heads. He then uses the move Karobase Shikomi Bat, capturing Zoro. This leads to Miss Wednesday using Kirby, of all people, as a freaking hostage, along with my heart against Zoro. This battle ain't over yet, though, as Mr. 8 uses Igarapapa. You motherfuckers thought metal homing baseball bats were strange? Well, how about a wig with guns built into the curls themselves? Checkmate, atheists! So, Zoro, being a man's man, simply grabs the wire and slings Mr. 9 into a building, then right back into Miss Wednesday and Quack McDoodles. Then, to take out Mr. 8, Zoro actually uses Kirby's stomach as a launch pad to jump up and take out Mr. 8. What the hell am I watching? The next day, however, we see people of the town running, surprised that agents below the numbers of 12 were defeated, suggesting some sort of hierarchy in the Baroque Works organization, which is when the people run into goddamn bird and sea otter. Of course they do. Of course! This is when Mr. 5 and Miss Wednesday show up, and they all behold their sight on what has occurred here. And we get a look at them too. Mr. 5 looks like Lenny Kravitz, and Miss Valentine looks like a tall glass of lemonade. And no, that wasn't me making a degenerate joke to bring comedic relief and self-deprecation to the video. She literally looks like a tall glass of lemonade. Though, they're not here for backup. Rather, they are here because their boss has already found out that their secret has gotten out, and they're here to deal with it. So, who is the boss guy? It's such a mystery because the dude/chick has already found out this quickly? That's insane. Either way, it seems they have a spy amongst the ranks of Baroque works. And not only that, they are from the kingdom of Arabasta. So the rest of them basically break out into a fight with Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. Valentine breaks Wednesday's hair tie, which, yes, oh my god, yes, more of this. Anyways, turns out that Miss Wednesday and Mr. 8 are the spies from Arabasta, their true names, Igaram and Arabasta's princess, Nefertari Vivi. So, they're here to eliminate the two, though surprisingly, Mr. 9 goes to bat and defends the former Miss Wednesday, because after all, they're still comrades. He then sacrifices himself to try and let Vivi run away. We're going to call her Vivi, by the way. Nefertari is a cool name, but we're going to call her Vivi. Then Mr. 8 crawls to Zoro and begs him to help them protect Princess Vivi as they are ability users. Though Nami appears and, it's Nami, puts a price on their help. $1 billion belly. Alliteration. Despite that insane asking price, I must admit, this is some great expressive art of Nami. She basically uses the leverage of Vivi being a princess in danger to get what she wants, though there is no time to negotiate, and thus, they are forced to save the princess first and then get a deal later. So she tries to send out Zoro, but Zoro doesn't want to do it. It's her deal after all, and though she's going to take all of the money, it somehow still falls upon the entire crew to get the job done. Though Nami, heartless as she is, reminds Zoro he still owes her money. So, yeah. It turns out that the money she lent him at Logtown actually did have 300% interest, and so now Zoro actually has to do what she says? Though, I must admit, this is like returning a game and still somehow owing more than you bought for it. Actually, yeah, that does sound like modern gaming, alright. As this is happening, Mr. 5 is chasing after Vivi when we learn that his devil fruit ability is that he can make any part of his body explode as he ate the bomb fruit, which he demonstrates by giving Miss Monday an explosive clothesline. Though, as Mr. 5 is about to use the nose fancy cannon to finish the job, Zoro arrives to save Vivi. Mind you, the nose fancy cannon is literally a flaming booger, so yeah, I don't know where to go with that, but know that Zoro cut a booger in half. However, back with Nami, we learn that the purpose of the Baroque Works organization is ultimately creating an ideal nation, and those who do their best will receive high-ranking positions in the new government. Joy. Though, as Zoro faces off with Miss Valentine and Mr. 5, Luffy comes out of nowhere like an RKO and he wants to fight Zoro. He believes that Zoro is attacking these people for no reason, not realizing that the events that occurred since he had been asleep. So the two unexpectedly fight each other, and Zoro kicks Luffy into Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. This is where we learn Miss Valentine's ability is to change her weight to 1 kilogram, aptly named the Kilo fruit. All the while, a confusing series of events breaks out where Miss Valentine changes her weight to 10,000 kilograms, only to miss while Zoro and Luffy escalate their own fight even more. This is when the two agents decide to take the two lunatics out together. But this would ultimately be their biggest mistake, as they take out the two for interrupting their fight, only to then be knocked the freak out by Nami immediately after. While Luffy and Zoro come to a common ground, Nami tries to make a deal for 1 billion belly, but Vivi has to refuse the offer. Instead, we hear about a kingdom called Arabasta, which at one point was a peaceful town. Recently, however, Arabasta has been under revolution. So when Vivi heard about Baroque Works, she wanted to investigate it herself to figure out their intentions in Arabasta. Turns out, their intentions are to take over Arabasta and create the ideal nation they've been seeking. So, Vivi wants to stop them and save Arabasta. But the Straw Hats ask their boss's name, and while she is reluctant and refuses, she has an intrusive thought and just spills the beans. The leader of Baroque Works is Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords. Holy shit. So Mr. 13 and the Sea Otter go to report to Crocodile of what just happened. This causes Nami to yell at Vivi and cry of all things. Good one, Vivi. So Nami decides to leave once again, but it's too late as the Otter is there drawing all of their faces on paper. Even Nami's like, wow, you're pretty good. So now they're all on a hit list and they can't run away. Not even Vivi's savings account will stop Nami from crying. This is when Igaram, who I may be pronouncing that name wrong, it may be Igaram. Who knows? Put in the comments below. Who appears dressed as Vivi because he's going to act as a decoy. While that's being said, Igaram asks Vivi for the Eternal Pose, which is a variation of the log pose where it records the magnetic field of one location and forever. And the one that they have will always point towards Arabasta. So Igaram goes to be the decoy and immediately is taken out as Vivi can only watch in a heartbreaking moment. Even then, however, they don't have the time to just sit and wait, and they have to get to the Going Merry immediately so that Igaram's sacrifice is not in vain. I'm gonna be real with you all. At first, I didn't think I was going to like this arc that much. This is simply because I didn't know what an arc carried out by these mysterious agents would play out like. I mean, I had my doubts to say the least. But by the end, however, I think Whiskey Peak ended up being a fantastic arc because of the slow build to the ultimate payoff of an amazing multi-chapter long fight that just kept getting more hilarious, more wild, and more unpredictable. In that sense, it sort of brought back the unpredictability of the fights of the earlier arcs, which, as you guys know, I am a huge fan of, to say the least. That being said, I think this arc all around is really damn good. Certainly not a slouch in the least. The twist of Miss Wednesday and Mr. 8 being Vivi and Igaram, the former of which being the princess of Arabasta, is without a doubt a moment that, to me, made this arc. That's because the expectation going into Whiskey Peak is that they're going to go from island to island, repeating the same stories with the same outcomes of East Blue in terms of at least how they're structured. Instead, Oda subverts the expectation of the viewer by having the mystery of the Baroque organization, the characters of Mr. 8 and Miss Wednesday, and the expectation of shonen storytelling to flip the viewer on its head and completely surprise us by the end of the arc. This is the subversion of Whiskey Peak. And to me, it is what made this arc go from a good arc to a truly unique arc which separates itself from every other story that has been told thus far in One Piece. Miss Valentine, Mr. 5, Mr. 9, Baroque Works, even these are just little icings on the cake, so to speak, and the cake itself as a whole is very delicious indeed. Even the fights in this arc, while being silly, seemingly followed the footsteps of ultimately subverting the reader, rather than creating anything that built upon the foundations of our expectations of the fights, which actually, it sort of did use them to subvert us even further by having, at the end, Luffy and Zoro fight rather than the two antagonists. It's just small things like that which make this arc so unique and fun. But here comes the question. What am I going to rank Whiskey Peak? Well, after a lot of careful thought and deliberation, I've decided that I think Whiskey Peak is an easy A-tier arc. The reason being is because while it clearly is here to push the story in the direction of Arabasta, I think that this arc is able to stand out through its subversiveness alone. I'd actually recommend this arc any day to a friend, and maybe you should this video as well, maybe to a friend, community, or a Reddit post or Twitter post, because I think Whiskey Peak is that damn good that I'd like to sing the praises of Oda's terrific work done here, because honestly, it really is amazing. Though, obviously, put in the comments below, what are your thoughts on Whiskey Peak, and where does it sit amongst the arcs? Though the Straw Hats make their way to the Going Merry to escape, they are interrupted by a mysterious woman with a cowboy hat. This woman is none other than Miss All Sunday, the murderer of Igaram and the vice president of Baroque Works. Turns out that this woman let Vivi follow her to figure out the boss's true identity, though not through altruistic means. More surprisingly, however, is how she knows the name of Monkey D. Luffy and takes his hat, seemingly using some kind of force power to do so. She also knows their destination, Little Garden, though in a surprising twist gives them an eternal pose to the Vacant Islands, which is the island right before Arabasta, and the route in question is uninhabited by Baroque works, so it's free of danger. This leads to Vivi just contemplating her decision, but Luffy makes the final call for her as he destroys the eternal pose, all because nobody can choose their journey but themselves. Luffy, he's a true man of freedom, I tell you what. And while Sunday doesn't hate bold men, she leaves on her tortoise named Bunch. That's kind of cute. Now Vivi is left with a choice. Will she join the Straw Hats? She doesn't want to get them into danger, though Nami does remind her she's already gotten them into trouble as is, which Nami doesn't seem too happy about still, though she joins them. And so begins their adventure to Little Garden. All the while, Miss All Sunday is observing their movement. Next up, we gotta talk about Little Garden, though I gotta admit I have no idea what to think about Miss All Sunday. I do think that Luffy did make the right choice here though, as I feel like Sunday is trying to use the Straw Hats to some degree, and of course freedom is a big theme of One Piece, and Luffy refusing her aid sets them, in my opinion, on the right course ultimately. As well, I'm excited for Vivi to join the Straw Hats. It's always nice having a new face, especially when they're the princess of Arabasta. An arc that I am immeasurably excited for. You have no idea. Though, it's only onwards and upwards from here. The next arc is Little Garden, and you can get access to it in my videos on Drum Island and Arabasta right now by becoming a patron. Also, subscribe, will ya? This and much more next time on the adventures of One Piece.